The night was quiet, the kind where even streetlights hummed softly in the cold air. A black SUV rolled down the deserted avenue, headlights cutting through the mist. Inside, James Carter, calm, composed, dressed in casual clothes, drove home after a long day. He didn't know this night would test not his job, but his patience and dignity. Just 2 blocks from his home, flashing red and blue lights burst behind him. 2 city cops pulled him over for a routine check. Their tone carried suspicion before a single word was spoken. James stayed still, hands on the wheel, his deep voice steady. "Is there a problem, officer?" But his calmness only irritated them more. They saw not his poise, not his badge hidden in his wallet, only the color of his skin. The tension in the air began to thicken like smoke, and fate waited quietly for the moment it would all turn. The taller officer leaned close, flashlight glaring into James's eyes. "License and registration," he said, his tone hard. James complied slowly, every move deliberate, respectful, cautious. The younger cop circled the car, his hand resting near his holster. The air was heavy with unspoken prejudice. "Were you headed this late?" the officer demanded. James answered softly, "Home. Just finished work." A smirk crossed the cop's face. "What kind of work keeps you out at this hour?" For a moment, James thought to reveal who he was, a U.S. Marshal with years of service. But he stayed quiet, testing their humanity instead. They didn't know they were questioning a man who'd risked his life for the very country they served. The younger cop began muttering to himself, suspicion clouding his mind. The darkness around them grew tense, and the silence of the street became a witness to injustice in slow motion. The officers told James to step out of the vehicle. He obeyed. Calm. Controlled. Even when one of them spoke sharply. "Keep your hands where I can see them." James did exactly that, his voice level but firm. "I'm cooperating, officer." Yet the moment stretched painfully, his quiet strength only fueling their doubts. One cop began checking the car, tossing papers and a jacket aside. James watched silently, not in fear, but disappointment. These were men sworn to protect, blinded by assumption. "You people think you can do whatever you want," one said under his breath. James looked at him, sadness in his eyes, not anger. "You have no idea who I am," he said softly. But still, they didn't listen. They only saw what they wanted to see. And when the radio crackled in the distance, fate decided it was time for truth to surface. A voice came through the police radio, a code alert about a missing U.S. Marshal SUV reported near that very area. The older officer paused, glancing at the badge number mentioned. It matched the one on James's plate. His partner froze, disbelief cutting through arrogance. James reached into his jacket slowly and pulled out a badge, a golden shine under the flashing lights. Silence fell. The same men who'd questioned his every move now stood wordless, faces pale. "I serve with the U.S. Marshal Service," James said quietly. "You've been pulling over one of your own." The realization hit like thunder. Regret crawled across their faces. The taller cop lowered his gaze, shame replacing authority. "Sir, we didn't know." James looked at them, his voice calm yet piercing. "You never asked." That single line echoed through the air, heavier than any punishment. The silence after truth is always the loudest. The cops stumbled through apologies, voices trembling. But James didn't want their words, he wanted change. "How many others never get the chance to show who they really are?" he asked. The younger cop swallowed hard, realizing the question wasn't for him, it was for the world. James could have reported them, ruined their careers, but instead, he stood quietly. "Every day, I wear this badge to serve, not to divide. Remember that before you judge again." The sincerity in his voice broke through the cold night. Even the flashing lights seemed to fade softer, reflecting the weight of realization. In that brief silence, 2 officers met the men behind the uniform, and learned what integrity truly meant. The silence after truth is always the loudest. The cops stumbled through apologies, voices trembling. But James didn't want their words, he wanted Chongebei morning, the city knew. The incident spread across departments, whispered in locker rooms and break areas. Some defended the cops, others hung their heads. But James didn't seek revenge, he sought respect. He visited the precinct himself, in full uniform, and requested a meeting. Standing before them, he spoke not as a victim but as a leader. Mistakes can break us, or build us, he said. But only if we're brave enough to face them. His words carried no anger, just the quiet power of truth. The two officers sat among the others, unable to meet his gaze. Yet for the first time, they truly listened. Change doesn't start with policies, it starts with people. Months later, James stood before a classroom of new recruits, telling them the story not as a warning, but as a lesson. Respect has no color, no uniform, no side of the badge, he said. The rookies listened, wide-eyed, inspired. One of them asked, "What did you feel that night, sir?" James smiled faintly. "I felt human. That's all any of us ever want, to be seen for who we are." His voice echoed through the hall, calm yet powerful. Outside, the sun rose over the city, warm, golden, forgiving. And though scars of that night remained, so did hope. Because sometimes, the hardest nights give birth to the brightest mornings.